Hi everybody and welcome to the Module 9 of the ESCAPE2 training course. This module is about implementing accessibility and inclusiveness in tourism, with a special focus on rural tourism, small-medium enterprises. Accessibility and inclusiveness in tourism. In the tourism market, there are non-legible niche linked to potential customers with special needs. People with motor disability, even temporary, with cognitive disabilities, blind or visually impaired people, deaf people, people with special dietary needs due to allergies, religions, philosophy of life, single-parent family or with small children, LGBTQ people. Each of these niches has specific needs and expresses clear demands to which the market does not always provide an adequate offer. The module is divided in 4 parts. The first one, defining accessibility and inclusiveness in tourism. The second part, the main goals of inclusive tourism. The third part, the reasons why accessibility and inclusiveness in tourism are important, with a focus on the targets. And the fourth part, the implementation. So how to prioritize and implement accessibility and inclusiveness into a tourism business. What you will learn in this module. You will learn to find out more about the special needs in tourism, discover the potential of inclusive and accessible tourism, understand the opportunities and increase your knowledge by learning from best practice, identify the target of interest and the key points to make your proposals inclusive. And finally, learn how to characterize your business in order to make it effectively accessible and inclusive. The first part, defining accessibility and inclusiveness in tourism. Let's go through some definitions related to accessible and inclusive tourism to ensure we have a clear understanding of the interpretation of the concept. The first concept, accessible tourism, it is an approach that can be applied to every type of tourism and to every operator to create a proposal that can be experienced by everyone, even by people with special needs, people with motor disabilities, even temporary, with cognitive disabilities, blind or visually impaired people, deaf people, for example. The inclusion tourism. It is the approach to each type and tourist product that takes into account not only accessibility, but also the need of a particular groups of people, such as seniors, people with specially dietary needs due to allergy, religions, philosophy of life, single-parent family or with small children, LGBTQ people, people belonging to ethnic or religious minorities, and so on. Defining accessibility and inclusiveness in tourism. The concept of tourist accessibility is therefore only a small part of the much more extensive and ambitious concept of tourist inclusion. Inclusive tourism means making spaces, communities, territories, hospitality, services, catering, experiences, routes and mobility accessible and usable for all. The future of the tourism industry is the removal of barriers to allow anyone to explore the world in total freedom. In this perspective, the principle that every tour operator, as well every citizen, should follow is that of inclusion. Inclusive tourism, therefore, means welcoming any traveler, making him feel at ease, regardless of his personal background. So, a tourism for all. In 1999, the World Tourism Organization adopted the World Code of Ethics for Tourism, which aims to promote responsible, sustainable, and accessible tourism to all. It proposes the improvement and development of the sector taking into account the impact on the environment and people. In 2013, the World Tourism Organization issued the Recommendation for Accessible Tourism, which contain all aspects related to the tourist experience, travel, accommodation, experiences, etc., integrated with the main concept of the United Nations Convention on People's Rights with Disabilities and Universal Design. Part 2. The main goals of inclusive tourism. If the principles of accessible tourism have long been established, those of inclusive tourism are still for many out of focus. Let's be clear. The first goal is accessibility. Ensuring accessibility to the tourist destination, its attractions, experiences and services for all. The necessary infrastructure also improves the quality of life of the resident population. The second goal, the usability, making cultural and naturalistic attraction accessible to all, as well as practical experiences. In this case, the impact in terms of improving quality of life of the residents is evident. Third goal, hospitality society, educating active citizen, local operator and political decision makers in the principle of hospitality for all, without discrimination based on gender, sexual orientation, race, religion, disability, or other. 4. Local involvement, empowering and making local communities active in planning and decision-making processes on the management and future development of inclusive tourism. Community welfare, to implement the quality of life in local communities, starting with access to resources and services. Quality of the destination, improving fundamental elements such as mobility, accessibility, and usability of places. And the last one, economic value, broaden the target of possible customers to implement the profitability and competitiveness destination and businesses. Local prosperity, implementing the contribution of tourism to the economic prosperity of the host destination. Tourist satisfaction, providing a safe, satisfying and rewarding experience for visitors available to all, without discrimination based on gender, race, disability, sexual orientation, religion, disability, or otherwise. To these are added the objective of sustainability, cultural landscape, respect and enhance the historical heritage, the authentic culture, the tradition and the particularity of the host community. environmental value, minimize air, water, and soil pollution and waste generation by tourist businesses and visitors. Physical integrity, maintaining and improving the quality of landscape, both urban and rural, and avoiding physical and visual degradation of the environment. And resource efficiency, minimize the use of scarce and non-renewable energies, resources in the development and operation of tourist facilities and services. Here there are some quick examples of inclusive tourism approaches. Facilitate better access through sustainable and suitable for all modes of transport. Remove the existing physical impediments that prevent or limit the use of places. Application of the principles of universal design in planning new spaces and in redefinition of places. Educating communities and tourism operators in the principle of hospitality for all. Provide adequate tools and knowledge to tourism operators, hospitality, services, reception guides, managers of monuments, museums, parks and attractions on the topic of inclusiveness. Create specific services for the target special needs. Create a new tourism product for specific categories, such as single-parent families, elderly people, families with small children, LGBTQ community, and so on. The third part, reasons why accessibility and inclusiveness in tourism are important. The targets. European tourism needs to be accessible and inclusive. The world of tourism is characterized by strong competitiveness and continuous changes. The recent epidemiological crisis has put the spotlight on rural locations considered safer in the area of COVID. This situation has allowed an unprecedented public to discover the advantages of this destination, characterized by large spaces, enormous natural and cultural heritage, interesting food and wine traditions. Although these destinations loom gaps relating to ease of access and adequacy of services, the new public has been able to ascertain the authenticity of the destination and the competitiveness of the offer. Quality-cost ratio. Even today, with the health situation now under control, the flow of visitors to rural areas is growing steadily, a sign that the public has now partly become aware of the opportunities offered. For rural destination, the only conceivable type of tourism is sustainable tourism, consisting of limited numbers. The importance of building loyalty in niche and specific markets is evident. In this perspective, the expansion of the catchment area of European rural areas to target tourists with specific needs seems strategic. By establishing themselves as tourist destinations accessible to all, thanks to the creation of itineraries and services dedicated to people with special needs and special categories, rural areas could be distinctly placed in the market. It would not be merely an ethical operation if we take into account that, for example, in Europe there are about 50 million people with physical disabilities, blind people about 30, and the elderly population continues to grow as a percentage of other demographic groups. According to the World Health Organization, 1 billion of the world's population currently has disabilities. We are therefore talking about a target with enormous economic potential. If we look at the categories of tourists with specific needs, we realize that the interest in inclusiveness is no less. Just think of the growing number of single-parent families in the Western world or the spending power of LGBTQ tourists. According to data from the latest UNWTO research, by 2030, there will be over 180 million LGBTQ tourists, while the tourism expenditure of those residing in European Community, UK included in the data, is already about 15 billion a year. Let's analyze the targets of our module. People with physical disabilities, people with reduced mobility and in wheelchair, even temporary, experience the limits of their freedom every day. Architectural barriers are everywhere. In the field of tourism, the response to their particular needs is not only connected to the possibility of finding suitable accommodation facility or being able to access monuments and museums, but above all to be able to live experiences suited to their needs, all in the guarantee of safety. It is therefore a question of planning and proposing suitable activities, cultural guided tours, naturalistic excursion, workshop, sports activity in the countryside, tasting, and so on, that use instrument and equipment specifically designed for their particular needs. Tourism for disabled people is becoming increasingly relevant, and today the need to allow everyone access and usability of goods and services is urgent. The second group of targets are the people blind and visually impaired. The journey has always been given a completely visual connotation. Seeing new places, seeing monuments, museums, photographing, filming, as if all the other senses did not have their own weight in tourist experience. What happens when you are blind or have impaired vision? Until recently, it was practically impossible to travel safely and derive satisfaction from the travel experience for this category of people. The attention to the needs of the blind has grown, with results above all for cultural tourism. More and more monuments and museums are equipped with the braille panels or models for tactile exploration. 3D printing allows the scaled reproduction of monuments and allows you to transform the paintings into bas-relief. The ability of private operators to adequately accommodate the blind, especially if unaccompanied, remains problematic. There are very few accommodation facilities and restaurants equipped with devices for blind guests, who often have difficulty even getting their guide dogs to be welcomed. Furthermore, there are still few outdoor activities and experiences designed specifically for this target. Another target group is composed by deaf people. Even in the case of deaf people, the first point to be addressed in planning a trip is related to safety. Mobility infrastructure are not always equipped with adequate devices. The target, in fact, needs elements of visual communication that replace the sound one in railway stations, airports, subway, roads, hotels, and so on. Likewise, reception areas should be equipped with luminous devices for communication, especially in the event of an emergency. Another fundamental element concerns communication. There are very few tourism operations who speak sign language. To this, we must add that there is no universal sign language, but that changes in every country. Communication technologies could partially overcome the obstacle. In any case, services and experiences designed for the deaf in tourism are still few and often linked to excellence in the cultural field. Another group of our targets of the special needs are people with special dietary needs. One of the most relevant aspects of a trip is the discovery of the local gastronomy. However, people do not approach food in a standard way due to various reasons that influence its possibilities and choices. An inclusive destination should allow everyone to meet their special food needs. But what are these special needs, and by what are they determined? Special dietary needs are determined by intolerances and allergies, religious belief, ethical belief. Food allergies and intolerances are reactions that develop in some individuals after consuming a certain food and represent an increasingly widespread problem in the population. Allergies are reactions of the immune system and as such can be severe, such as anaphylactic shock. Intolerance causes less dangerous symptoms, skin rash, nausea, vomiting, and so on. The most common allergens are milk, gluten, eggs, shellfish, peanuts, tree nuts. Restaurants should be able to offer alternatives to any intolerant or allergic guest. Always concerning people with special dietary needs. Some religions contain precepts regarding nutrition, perspective rules relating to the production of raw materials, their processing, and their preparation of dishes. They also ban some food. Kosher is the set of religious rules that regulate the diet of observant Jews and which derive from the Bible and the Torah. The discipline indicates which meats can be consumed, which ones are prohibited, prohibits the consumption of crustaceans, does not allow the consumption of dairy products and meat in the same lunch, etc. There is a kosher certification of the foods as well as adequate slaughter. Some restaurants are kosher certified. Another religion that has precept on food relating to the production of raw materials, their processing and the preparation of dishes is Islam. The term halal indicates what is allowed in matters of behaviors, language, dress, and nutrition. The discipline of halal food is based on a verse of Surah 16 of the Quran, and in this case indicates allowed and forbidden, correct methods of slaughter, etc. There is a halal certification of food. Another notable component of the special needs in terms of nutrition is deriving from philosophical beliefs and ethical conviction. In fact, the practices of vegetarianism, veganism, fruitfulness, raw food, etc., are increasingly widespread. Vegetarians exclude meat and fish from their diet. Vegans, on the other hand, are vegetarians who completely abstain from all food of animal origin, so they don't even eat eggs, milk, and its derivatives and honey. Fruitarians eat only fruit. Raw foodists refuse any physical, chemical, or other treatment on foods that alters their natural or original nutrition properties. At the base of raw food, there are reasons linked to nutritionism, healthism, and mysticism of nature. Another target is composed by families with children. One of the most interesting targets with regard to special needs is made up of family with children. This is a classic target on which the fortune of the Classic C product, for example, has been built, but which, due to decline in birth in Western countries in recent decades, has become a niche. There are three elements to combine: the needs of family, those of the children, and those of the parents. The tourism product is focused on the needs of children and is therefore aimed at offers that include attraction, recreational activities, games, sport, courses, workshops. Often the operators offering this type of products are resorts or tourist villages where every moment of the day is organized for children. In fact, the construction of a vocation that contains all these elements by families is complicated and expensive if it does not involve a single service provider. However, there are also destinations that have built the product thanks to various thematic attractors managed by different operators that characterize the local offer. Another targets single parents families. The social composition is changing, especially in Western countries. Single parent families are increasingly common. These are families made up of a single adult, single father or single mother, and children. This type of family has the typical needs of any family unit with young children: fun, play, free time, discovery, sharing, relaxation, and so on, to which the specific needs of the single parent are associated: time for themselves, opportunities for socialization, entertainment, culture. It is necessary to consider the situation of a single parent as a highly demanding condition, which therefore takes away space from other areas of relational life. The time of the holiday therefore becomes the space in which to recover time for one's own care by the parent. Tourist product for this type of target must therefore be able to create diversified moments and spaces for the different members of the family, in addition to those designed for sharing. A fundamental element will therefore be the presence of services dedicated to children, with assistance such as entertainment and babysitting that allow the parent to have time for himself. Another target are senior. Very interesting target is that of the elderly. First of all, for numerical data and future prospect, more than 20% of the European population is over 65, and forecasts say that this percentage will increase steadily. It is an interesting target also from an economic point of view, mostly retired belonging to the boom generation and who have mainly benefited from the economic privileges of those who started working in 60-70. Income, position, saving, and so on. The needs of this target with an high average spending potential are very peculiar. Beautiful destination, interest in art and culture, food and wine, slow rhythm, authentic contact with local culture, soft physical activities. To this we must associate the need to organize travel in all its aspects, especially for travel abroad. This is a generation with little familiarity with travel outside their country of birth, residence, and who does not speak second languages. It is clear that we are faced with a target that allows the construction of complex and articulated proposals consisting of a great variety of possible services, accommodation, restaurant, guided tours, accompaniment, excursion, insurance, etc., resulting in a wide range of services possibility of action for operators. Another target composed by the community LGBTQA. The needs of this target are connected to a few and essential factors: the perception of safety and being able to openly live one's sexuality, the attractiveness of the destination, beauty, culture, entertainment, lifestyle, and so on. If we look at the leading LGBTQA destination in the world, San Francisco, New York, Tel Aviv, Madrid, Berlin, Mykonos, etc., we realize that these are mainly destinations in countries with laws attentive to LGBTQA rights and therefore considered welcoming. LGBTQA destinations have been able to build products adhering to the needs of the targets, which is among those who spend the most on holidays. People with a medium-high purchasing power who have different priorities on average from the rest of the population and who invest more in culture, leisure, entertainment, food and wine, etc. Another characteristic connoting the target is the prosperity to choose destination strongly characterized from an aesthetic point of view, whether it is nature, landscape, or architecture. The fourth part of the modules: how to prioritize and implement accessibility and inclusiveness into a tourism business. How can my small-medium enterprise be inclusive? Tourism for all is a concept that caters to a growing segment of travelers with a diverse range of needs and requirements. An inclusive tourism business or destination works to deliver positive travel experiences to people with different needs, addressing them from various perspectives and providing design solutions and services that aim to cover as many different groups as possible. As already seen, the concept of inclusiveness is broader than that of accessibility and contains it. This section intends to clarify the elements that a tourism company must necessarily contemplate in order to be defined as inclusive, avoiding errors or superficiality that could affect the results of the action. The starting point to be an inclusive tourism business is to change your mentality and put yourself in the shoes of the potential customer as much as possible. Implement an inclusive management approach. The travel experience begins with its planning. An inclusive activity must take everything that precedes the journey easy, clear, and welcoming, from searching for information to booking services. A website of any tourism company should clearly indicate the accessibility of places, if they exist, and which services are dedicated to the various target groups with special needs. Sometimes just a few icons are enough. The silhouette of a dog will make travelers with pets understand that they are welcome. If your customers have special needs, don't underestimate them. Communicate with them and try to understand as much as possible. The issue of accessibility is more commonly considered only for physical disabilities, people in wheelchairs or with limited movement. Moreover, it is only partially guaranteed in place of public interest and in accommodation facilities and restaurants. In most cases, wheelchair users are granted access only to certain areas of the attractions, with limited use of the services. A competitive advantage of a tourism company can be constituted by making all areas of a structure or an attraction accessible and all services usable. In order to be defined as accessible, an accommodation facility must therefore allow disabled access to common areas, be equipped with rooms and bathrooms with adequate standards. Remember, bathrooms for the disabled can be beautiful, and must finally guarantee usability of the services to all guests, regardless of their physical condition. If a hotel has, for example, a swimming pool or a spa, these must allow their use to the disabled people. Often the accommodation facilities and restaurants are equipped with measures aimed only at welcoming people in wheelchairs, completely neglecting the needs of blind and deaf people. Inclusive restaurants, in addition to guaranteeing accessibility, must be able to offer alternatives to any intolerant, allergic, or special dietary needs guests. Leaving out the complex kosher or halal certification, it will be necessary to be able to offer vegetarian and vegan options. The menus must contain an indication of any allergens in the dishes proposed, and the customer must be able to request a preparation that excludes from a dish those ingredients to which they are possibly allergic or intolerant. The dining room staff must be informed in detail on the subjects of allergens, so they can answer consumer question correctly. This kitchen staff, on the other hand, must perfectly know the procedure to follow for the preparation of a dish ordered by an allergic person and avoid the risk of food contamination. The entire kitchen must be organized in such a way as to know perfectly the composition of the ingredients used. Given the complexity of inclusiveness, small and medium-sized tourism businesses should concentrate and develop reception policies for the most appropriate target for their business. If your goal is to attract families with small children, it will be advisable to have specific services for children, games area, workshop, areas for recreational sports activities, instructor, babysitting, and so on. If, on the other hand, you decide to propose yourself to the LGBTQA target, you must be sure that all the staff of your company are well disposed toward potential customers and that they know how to approach them, be welcoming and never intrusive. Then, eventually, you can also build targeted services such as stays for singles with socialization activities, excursion, and so on. Thank you for your attention, and if you have any question, don't hesitate to write us and follow us in our social media. Thank you and goodbye.